The blend of action and adventure in combination with the wonderful sense of character found in the Uncharted series is something I find to be so endlessly addictive. The simplistic nature of the shooting, climbing and puzzles is immediately engaging and a total joy, and getting to experience all that with one of the most endearing casts in video game history results in me itching to revisit the whole thing all over again upon simply seeing a bit of footage from any of Nathan Drake's adventures. This is a phenomenally entertaining franchise for me, and my love for it has long since reached a point where every entry feels equally special to me, so I've just given up attempting to pick my definitive favourite or rank them in general. Now, I talked about this series way back when I first started reviewing, and while I'm mostly okay with how my videos on 3 and 4 turned out, I really don't think I did the first two justice at all. And these entries have a certain nostalgic magic about them that I've really come to treasure and want to express better. So today, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Well, for the first game anyway. I'll get to some other time. Now, Drake's Fortune always felt like the weakest one by default on the PS3, mostly for technical reasons, but thanks to the Nathan Drake collection's enhanced visual splendor, its smaller scale charm can really shine. And while I'm not oblivious to its lack of polish and variety still, I have grown to unabashedly love this game just as much as its more ambitious successors. It's such a terrific introduction to this series. It hits the ground running feeling full-blooded, and I honestly got so swept up in it during the first session of my most recent playthrough, I genuinely felt as though I could have played through the whole thing right then and there. The following games may offer more enriching gameplay experiences overall, but this first entry boasts serious heart that's hard to resist. And there's other standout qualities it offers beyond that which really sets it apart from the others, most notably its greater emphasis on location. Taking place predominantly on this one island leads to a more well thought out environment in which Naughty Dog will have you looping back on and climbing above previously visited areas. Passing things like the cell Nate gets imprisoned in soon after, and especially this hole knowing the Statue of El Dorado lies down there, makes it all feel more connected than in the other games, and really gives the impression you're exploring and gradually figuring out the layout of, for lack of a better word, uncharted territory. Despite the game's linearity, this makes the island an enthralling location to work your way through. The puzzles are pretty basic here, but evoke a nice sense of anticipation and intrigue for the history being uncovered. It always feels very naturally integrated into the flow of things. Unlike that segue in the script. Anyway, at this point in this series, it's really just an extension of the platforming. What's funny is the climbing involves very little skill, yet it's always felt really gratifying anyway. It controls really well, can oftentimes surprisingly offer a section of calm amid all the action, but most of all getting to leap and swing across these vast, beautiful landscapes really adds a lot to the adventurous tone. And on top of all that, the lush colours along with the ambient sounds of the birds, trees and ocean waves along with the evocative music makes it all so gorgeously atmospheric. Something the first two games specifically do, which I love, is have no mundane, ordinary-looking locations. Even the necessary exposition scenes take place in these exotic resorts. There's a constant sense of adventure which feels exciting and sets up this universe in an awesome way by giving us the impression we're smack bang in the middle of this world of thieves. It makes the characters feel lived in and allows the banter between them to move the plot along in a very natural manner. This might be a simple tale, albeit with very well done twists and turns. I do tend to forget that this was one of the very first games I played to tell its story in a cinematic fashion, but experiencing it with some of the most endearing characters in video game history elevates it to such a high level.
I can't leave you alone for a minute, can I?
I had everything under control until they blew up the boat. You all right?
Nothing that years of therapy won't fix.
I mean, my god, the perfect casting, cracking dialogue, and the relatability of Nate, Elena, and Sully's reactions and interactions is pure magic. For this particular entry, Elena filming for her TV show is a really fun element. And even though the camera gets destroyed, I always thought to see what the program would have actually looked like would have made for a great special feature if you beat the game on the hardest difficulty or something.
That should keep him from changing the channel.
Anyway, there's something about the way Nate, or anyone else really, breaks down new information which remains utterly riveting even knowing what happens. Part of the reason I've grown to love all these games equally is when I'm sucked into the adventure, it's just that, I'm sucked into the adventure and not comparing it to the others. The whole car chase bit may be a pretty tame set piece for this franchise, but in the context of this game, it's still quite thrilling to play through. And the 12-year-old who was very disturbed by the appearance of zombies has grown to love that curveball, especially if you consider it the blueprint for what The Last of Us would become. I don't think the monsters in the sequels ever felt as iconic as these guys. The bunker chapters with their bold lighting and propulsive soundtrack is still a great suspenseful section to run and gun your way through. And speaking of gunplay, I'll readily concede there is an overabundance of shooting encounters in this game, but the brisk running time leaves me less bothered by that fact with each passing playthrough. I still find it to be a blast, no matter how easy or challenging a particular area is. All the different weapons are immensely satisfying to wield with impactful sound effects I've really taken for granted in the past, but they do add a lot to the overall satisfaction of these gunfights, especially when reloading.
Alright.
I love using and dodging grenades, and the AI's behavior in this one I think helps with the repetition. The action feels less spontaneous, and thus more arcade-like. I have great fun aiming for as many headshots as possible. It's also pretty satisfying to use the rocket launcher in the jet ski sections, although those parts are a bit of a mixed bag. The controls are a bit wonky and that lets them down, because I do like the idea of them in concept, and although it would have been hard to naturally include, part of me wishes 4, with all its vehicular moments, managed to fit in a bit with a jet ski with better controls to sort of redeem the concept of using one in an Uncharted game. But still, there's a certain air about Drake's fortune which leaves me so content playing through it. While what followed expanded the potential of this franchise in awe-inspiring ways, this one can still really hold its own in my opinion. It laid the groundwork for the simple yet insanely effective Uncharted formula incredibly well. Some people tend to forget just how well, and I just find it to be a marvelous little game that never fails to leave me with a big smile.
Buka Pintu!
Siapa bicara sekarang.
Ah, crap. Sialano! Cepatan, buka pintu!
Ah, tai.
It worked!
There he is!
Up there. Get on the gun.
Oh boy.